Before we get started tonight, did you know by attending this webinar, you could definitely qualify for a leadership development pin? Here's the question. Well, we're not going to give you the question just yet, but here are the things that you'll have to do in order to qualify for this pin. You'd need to attend at least 6 of these webinars, which we hope you've done so far. Soak up the knowledge like a sponge. Apply what you've learned in your unit, district, or area and show us how you were able to make some waves. Once you've nailed these steps, you're that much closer to winning the exclusive Leadership Development Award pin. It's not just a pin, it's a badge of honor that says you're a rock star leader in your organization. Without further ado, I'm happy to introduce Jackie Wilson, our leadership training specialist. Jackie?
Thank you, Mary. Tonight's a special topic that we have as we get towards the end of the school year. And we have finishing strong, transitioning well, being presented by our New York State PTA Secretary, Melissa Cancro, and our New York State PTA Treasurer, Sonia Varillo, who both know the importance of keeping documents and records and passing them on. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Let me just share my screen so you all can see our presentation. Okay. I'm going to let Melissa introduce, if I can.
I get the first slide. So I love animals. I teach, I work with kids from birth to 5th grade. So we always use this. Sonia found this, and it just exhibits kind of how this May and June feel. We're getting ready for a change. Some of you might be changing colors. You might be on your way out, and you might feel relief. I'm actually the Secretary of New York State, and so in November, my term is up and somebody else will be secretary after me. So I'm sort of in this midst with you. So, I'm feeling some relief that someone else is going to take this big job. I'm also having some feelings of nostalgia. Also, like, what am I going to do with spare time? Which is funny because we're all type A's. So we will find something to do. I have no doubt that you guys will fill your time with other worthy things. But it's kind of that mixture. And then if you're coming in, you're kind of like a little bit maybe anxious, maybe a little nervous. You're excited to get started and you're just kind of in that waiting period. So we wanted to kind of discuss both sides of that coin. So we want to thank you, especially the outgoing. Thank you for serving. And if you're coming in new, thank you for taking this new position, because PTA can't run without you guys. It would be, Sonia and I we couldn't do it from the top. Like, we need everybody and all these wonderful leaders. So we just thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts, because I know May and June can be rough. So we're in there with you.
Yeah, so the first thing to keep in mind as far as finishing strong PTA style is you want to make sure that all of your files that you've done in your role are in a central location for the group, or put them on a flash drive to be able to pass along to other people. I get it. I have files in 18 different places, but it's really, really important when you're doing stuff for PTA that we realize that this is a standalone organization that does, outlive our personal lifespans. And so it's important to make sure that when we're doing files, that we make sure we copy things, we make sure we have them in a central location. If you're using like Google for Nonprofits, or you have Microsoft Office products that you're using, or you have a shared Dropbox, or you have paper bins that you pass from officer to officer, notebooks, things like that, it's really important that you make sure that you have those files ready to transfer to the new officers. You also want to make sure that you update any documents with general overviews and timelines of your activities. What have you done this past year? It is super helpful to know as a new officer what's been done before, sort of the who, what, when, where, how kind of things. If an event happened well, write it down that it went well. What made it successful? If something didn't quite go as planned, still write it down. What maybe did you struggle with? What is something different that people in the future could maybe change to make it better? So make sure that you are taking a look at all of the events that you did. Write up just a half a sheet or one sheet on the tools that you use, the vendors you used, how did the event go, what was the flow, what was the room layout like. Obviously, whatever you can do to write that stuff down immediately after the event or program happened is while it's fresh in your mind, but it's not too late to be able to take time to do that. As I mentioned about being able to pass files, you want to make sure that all your files done as your role are in a central location for the group. And you also want to make note of the record retention requirements that are found in section 5A of the resource guide. Most financial detail records need to be kept for at least 7 years. And minutes, audit reports, tax filings, and organizational documents should be kept permanently. So you want to make sure that you know where that, if you have a letter of determination, you want to make sure you know where that is to pass that along. You want to make sure you know where your tax exempt certificate is. You want to make sure you know where the minutes are. You want to make sure where your 990N filings are. You can put those in givebacks. There is a compliance section that you could list some of that if you want to put them in your givebacks files. There's a file organizer in that platform. Or again, as I said before, you could leave it in a Dropbox, put it on a flash drive, print it out, put it in a Google file that gets passed along to future officers. Some treasurer specific tasks. Treasurers need to make sure that you record any end of year transactions or reimbursements. You really should not be reimbursing people for past expenses once you get into the new fiscal year. So make sure all of your officers and volunteers know that your deadline to reimburse people for any activities that they did for this fiscal year is whatever that date is. The fiscal year ends on June 30th. If you need to set the deadline, that the deadline's got to be by the 27th or by the 28th or whatever your deadline is, make sure that you let people know that they need to get those reimbursements into you ahead of time. Make sure that your records are ready for your annual financial review or your audit. So you want to make sure you have all of your bank reconciliations, all of your backup documents, get all that stuff together, all of your deposit tickets, all of your canceled checks, all of those records. Treasurers need to make sure that they get all of that ready. And then this third bullet under treasurer specific tasks is be sure to update Stripe with the new signers. I think everybody probably got some sort of communication recently that Stripe was doing sort of a refresh on all of their owners. So if you need help with that, there is a very helpful help article on the Give Back support site that will walk you through screen by screen what you need to do to transfer your Stripe account to new signers on the bank account. But the best time to do it is for the current officer treasurer to invite the new person onto the account. So it's best to do it when you've got both people that are able to work together on that transition. For your audit and financial review committee. So an audit is when it's done by a professional like accounting person. Usually what we say is the financial review committee is made up of at least 3 members of the unit who are not signers on the bank account for during the time period being reviewed. The president is also not allowed to be on the committee per the bylaws. And the complete description of how to complete a financial review is available in section 5A finance of the New York State PTA resource guide. And I just want to give a plug for our upcoming summer leadership conference. We are planning to do a special workshop on actually conducting a financial review at summer leadership conference. So I would encourage you to get members of your audit committee together, come to SLC, receive great training on a wide variety of topics, and bring all your financial documents, and let's get your financial review done at SLC.
I love that. I love that song. Yeah, I'm like, that's yeah. I've been on audits. I can look at a check and look at the number of the check and where it's supposed to be ledger. But she makes it so easy for dummies like me. But that's why she's the treasurer. So for the secretary, you just have to make sure that your minutes are done, which I know I'm behind on minutes, so I have a bunch of minutes in the queue. Make sure your minutes are done and that they're finalized. So usually when we have an executive meeting, we have it minutes on our consent agenda. So if the consent agenda passes, that means my minutes are approved and I can put finalized, which I put down on the bottom of the slide here that has adjournment and it says as presented on a date. That's how I record my minutes. So minutes of the exec board or your officers would be approved by the officers. Minutes of the association would be approved by your just a general meeting, general membership. And a special minutes of the meeting, like if you have to call a special meeting, sorry, it's a very Monday day for me, so I apologize. That would be approved at your regular general meeting. Minutes have to be kept for 7 years and then you archive them because they are part of your permanent record of your unit. So they might be asked for an audit. New York State, they are used, I have to give minutes to our auditors every year. And you are the custodian of the records. So that's just kind of a reminder because sometimes minutes get a raw deal because, you know, nobody reads, a lot of times, I shouldn't say nobody reads the minutes. We have 1 or 2 very dedicated people that read all my minutes and catch me with all my details, which I need because that's very helpful. But minutes are important because you're keeper of history. They show what change happened. It proves a background. It gives a history of why the change was made and any discussion around that change. So that's why we keep a record of it. And this way, you know, we can prove why we made financial decisions. So, and also don't forget to deliver a record of that minute to your successor. So like Sonia said, it's good. I use Google Drive, but I know there's others equivalent systems out there. But it's really great if you have just like a secretary at your PTA, because then that person can inherit everything. So it's much easier to transfer. I love Google Drive. I love Dropbox because it makes life so much easier. You don't have to have those bins. I'm going to show my age, the bins where all the minutes and all the records, and you get like 4 boxes put in your trunk and you're like, I don't know where to put those. So it makes life a little easier.
Do you want to introduce the video, Melissa?
Yes,
Or do you want
sorry,
me to-
Sonia. I told you it's a very Monday day. So Sonia was really good when we were coming up with this. She came up with this idea of it being like a relay race. So in a relay race, you have runners, you know, and you have to cooperate. So the race goes on and on. So this organization has been, it's almost 128 years old. So there have been lots of people running laps and the baton has been passed over and over again. So I made a video of sort of this, a funny video. So I have a baton in my office here and, you know, you want to have a very smooth transition of the baton, but we all know that sometimes people just throw the baton down, go, I'm done, and walk away. And some of you have had that happen to you. But we don't want that. It's very important to keep going. Kids are counting on us to you know, advocate for them, to represent them. So we just are showing this video on how to pass off the baton in a smooth way. So Sonia, if you play the video.
Oh, wait, hang on. Let me just, I forgot to do my special share video settings to make sure that
That's okay. And
hang on.
also,
Nope, no, I mean, I just got to do one thing. Hang on. Okay. I think. Okay, let's try this.
okay.
Just confirm with the thumbs up on the screen if you can hear it.
Positioned at the back of the zone, the outgoing runner receives the baton in their left hand and quickly changes it to the right hand. Leg 1 stays in the lane while leg 2 cuts in after the first bend. The outgoing runner shows a clear, open hand with thumb facing down and gauges the pace of the incoming runner.
Okay.
So that just gives you an example. One, nobody's throwing the baton down and saying I'm out walking off the field. And two, as they approach, and I'm not a track person, so if you are a runner, please forgive me if I get the terms wrong, but there is a certain area between the two triangles that you have to pass off the baton. So the person who is holding the baton has to have it back and behind them so that it's ready to hand off. Now, the person receiving the baton that's coming in, the new person, has to start running to keep pace so that they can smoothly hold it off. And then the outgoing one has to let it go so the new person can take off and do the next lap. So it's sort of like how we need to do this. So we'll explain how we're going to do that. And I love this example, Sonia. You're so smart.
Okay, so how to pass the baton PTA style. So you want to decide if you have email addresses for officers, board members, you want to make sure you know in advance how those are going to transition. Do you have them by position? Do you have them by name? One of those transferring over, what's the procedure for doing that? Who's in charge of doing that? You want to make sure you change any admins on your social media pages or groups. Make sure that those are ready for the new officers to be able to take ownership and be able to moderate those. Make sure you've got a list of all the different online accounts and passwords to pass on. If you've got, again, email addresses tied to Canva accounts or, any sort of, online TechSoup, logins, things like that. Just make sure, your sign up Genius account, your signup.com account, any online platform that you're using for PTA, you want to make sure you've got a list of what those accounts are so that you can be able to pass those resources on to the next person. As far as email, making sure that you're cleaning up your email. For positions like presidents that have copies of contracts and treasurers that might have copies of checks, maybe you utilize a folder system rather than just deleting stuff so you have a record of that. Or you can, I'm a big believer in archiving emails so it doesn't show up in your inbox anymore, but at least it's still saved for historical purposes. And if somebody needed to go through and search for a record or something, they would be able to have access to that. Make note of any subscriptions that you might need to roll to your personal email. Maybe that you inadvertently have something in there that was personal related. You want to make sure you have that removed and ready to pass on to the next person. And also make sure that you update your officers in the givebacks compliance section. And also don't forget to remove any admins that no longer need admin access. So in the givebacks platform, when you're adding officers, it will prompt you and enable you to very easily automatically make new officers an admin on your account on the givebacks platform. But in order to remove admin access, you have to go into the site settings and manually remove admins. So you want to make and notifications. So you want to make sure that you go in and that you do that, at the end of the year, if there are people that maybe don't need to have admin access anymore to the givebacks platform. This is the picture of Melissa getting the baton passed to her appropriately. See how you've got one person with the hand behind them, they're ready to grab it, and you've got the person that is getting ready to leave, it has the baton in front of them, and they're like, here it is, and the other person's like, I'm ready for you. Make sure that you share any key contacts like vendors, school admins, current committee chairs, etc. If you've had conversations and you know that somebody is interested in remaining as a committee chair, you can give that information to the next executive committee so they're aware of whether or not people want to stay on in the position or if they are interested, if they're not able to continue. Have a transitional exec meeting with current and new officers. This is great to do. Again, whenever after your elections have happened and you know who those new officers are, have a combined meeting so that way you all have a chance to get together, debrief about the year, have those transitional conversations. Be sure to include a list of financial account signers for the new term in your minutes. A lot of times banks will ask for a copy of minutes. When you have this transitional meeting, you can stipulate, in the minutes, have it recorded that as of July 1st to June 30th, the following people are authorized to be signers on our PTA bank accounts. Remember, you want to have, ideally, you want to have 3 people, because 2 people are required to be listed to be signers on all PTA checks. And you want to have a 3rd person designated. So in case one of the 2 primary signers needs a reimbursement for something, you have a 3rd signer that can sign off on that reimbursement for one of the other 2 signers. You cannot sign a reimbursement check made out to yourself. So that's why you need to always make sure you have 3 signers, and none of the 3 signers can be from the same family or household. And you want to, as outgoing leaders, you want to make sure that you're available for questions or to discuss issues as needed, but you want to make sure to let the new leaders lead.
So for the incoming, like we saw before, you have to start getting up to speed a little bit. And hopefully you're having a transmission meeting with that outgoing one. But in the meantime, you can get familiar with the bylaws, which govern our organization. If you don't know where your bylaws are, we have the bylaws at nyspta.org. You can contact our bylaws coordinator, and she can always get you in touch with somebody who will find them for you, because they do get lost. I had to do this when I was unit president for ASEPTA. We had no idea where they had gone. So that does happen. And if it does happen, don't feel bad. We've all heard a lot of different things. And occasionally we'll get a story that we'll be like, oh, that's new. But we've all been doing this a long time. So don't ever feel like you can't ask questions. We've all had our moments. So don't worry about that. Go over, if you have bylaws, the procedures are basically how you do things. So some units have procedures, some do not. So if you don't have procedures, don't worry. It's always a good thing, like Sonia was talking before, it kind of is a more formalized of that. What do we do for each event, and what do we do for our committees? So if you need help with that, you can contact, again, the bylaws coordinator, and they can help you with that. Job descriptions, they're always good to let people know what they're doing. So if you have job descriptions, check them out. We have the resource guide on the New York State PTA.org that has list of what the president should do, what the board should do, and it is in lots of sections. So this is always my tip. Take it in little chunks, because when you look at all you have to read, it's a lot. But you have a lot of time. And especially if you're not a bylaws person. I was not a bylaws person until I became secretary, and then I got really familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, but it took me a long time, and I just read them in little bits. And sometimes I recommend reading them at night, because then you get a good night's sleep, and then you'll eventually get through in about 6 months all of your bylaws. So make training a priority. So this great leadership development team has done all these great webinars that are available on the New York State PTA website. So they have recorded tons of material. You can look up many different topics. And also National PTA has a platform called Thrive, which is like an online, you can learn about different positions and different avenues of PTA. So that's really helpful. Sonia and I have both, and I think Jackie and Mary have gone through these trainings for different things. So those are very helpful. Attend Summer Leadership Conference. It will be in Albany at the Crown Plaza Desmond on July 27th through 28th. Our theme is, it's Barbie. I have blanked on what the actual thing, I think everyone's PTA, and PTA is everyone. But anyway, they'll put the correct thing in the chat. But so it's Barbie themed, but there is also, if you're a guy, you can come. There's many different Ken types in the Barbie movie. There's also Alan. So I'm not a big fan of pink, but I'm going to try to embrace my inner Barbie. So and while you're getting ready, every person brings their own talents and perspectives to this job. And we need that. We need tons of different people with tons of different ways of doing things. So think about how you perceive things and what's your perspective and what skills you're bringing back to the table, because you may not do things the same as the last president or secretary or vice president. That's okay, as long as you're fiscally responsible and there's a morally responsible. But as long as you're doing things to the, the best of your abilities, there's way more, there's not one way to do something. So you bring some valuable skills just by being who you are. So think about that as you're coming into the job. Okay. And the next slide.
Okay, actually, the next slide was a sort of a repeat, so we're going to skip that one.
Okay.
So passing the baton. So where do you get support? So depending on what level you're at, you see there's many different levels of PTA. We have the unit, which is usually at a building level. Some area, a lot of areas in our state have units that are joined by a council, which is represented at the district level. And then councils are, put a bunch of councils together. You've got the region, and then obviously the region is linked to the state. So, so PTA has supported all levels. The best way what's the best way that experienced leaders can continue to grow and learn is to get involved in the upper levels of PTA. So for new leaders, if you're at the unit level, if you have a council, go to your council for support. If you don't have a council, you can go right to the region. There's a list on the website of, we have 12 regions throughout the state, and there's a region director for every single region with a region board. So you've got some built-in geographic support right near where you are that can answer a bunch of questions and give you support. Likewise, for the experienced person, if you're like, okay, I've termed out as president, what do I do now? I still am passionate about PTA. I'm still passionate about being an advocate for kids. I want to continue to grow in my leadership journey. We would encourage you to take a look at becoming involved at the council level or the region level or the state level. So there's always opportunities to grow. Just because you happen to be done at a unit level does not mean that your PTA journey needs to end. We're always looking for great leaders. And there's an opening for everybody. So I would encourage you to contact your council or contact your region director and see how can I get involved. So to kind of close out, I just wanted to share this one snippet from Abby Wambach. I'm in the Genesee Valley region. I'm from Rochester, New York. Abby Wambach is from Rochester. She's been a world-class athlete, soccer player, women's cup, Olympic team. And she had a book on leadership called Wolfpack. And I thought that this particular part was particularly it was appropriate for our conversation, so I wanted to share it with you.
Rule number 2, lead from the bench. Imagine this. You've scored more goals than any human being on the planet, female or male. You've co-captained and led Team USA in almost every category for the past decade. And you and your coach sit down and decide together that you won't be a starter in your last World Cup for Team USA. So that sucked. You'll feel benched sometimes too. You'll be passed over for the promotion, taken off the project. You might even be finding yourself holding a baby instead of a briefcase, watching your colleagues get ahead. Here's what's important. You're allowed to be disappointed when it feels like life's benched you. What you aren't allowed to do is miss your opportunity to lead from the bench. During that last World Cup, my teammates told me that my presence, my support, my vocal and relentless belief in them from the bench is what gave them the confidence they needed to win us that championship. If you're not a leader on the bench, then don't call yourself a leader on the field. You're either a leader everywhere or nowhere. And by the way, The fiercest leading I've ever seen has been done between mother and child. Parenting is no bench. It just might be the big game. Wolfpack, wherever you're put, lead from there.
Okay. So in thinking about how we as PTA leaders can finish strong and transition well, I would encourage all of us to consider how all levels of PTA are unique entities that are designed to far surpass the lifespan of a single person. PTA leaders are temporary stewards of that organization. And when we transition from playing field to the bench, our passion and voices are still needed to encourage and support. Our goal as PTA leaders should not be to make a name for ourselves, but to move our mission forward so that the next generation of leaders can pick up what we have done and move far beyond what we can imagine. So Mary, I think, has a special LD badge, as she mentioned, question that we want to share with all of you. I think you'll get it.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I hope everyone's enjoying tonight's webinar. Earlier in the webinar, we mentioned briefly that we had a fantastic opportunity for the chance to win the Leadership Development Pin. Now, here's your special question for tonight. What is the phrase shared on how to finish strong, transition well? Any guesses? What do you think the answer is, Melissa?
Passing the baton.
Passing the baton. So the answer is passing the baton. Don't worry if you didn't catch it the first time. This is a recorded webinar and you can always revisit it to get the special question. So keep watching, keep learning, and remember you can return to this webinar whenever you'd like for your special question. Now let's dive back into our discussion. If you have any questions, now's the time to place them in the chat.
We did have a couple, Mary. One was about SLC, and I know that that was on one of the slides. When is SLC? And it is July 27th to 28th, as Melissa mentioned, at the Desmond Hotel in Albany. And it is a 24-hour conference, basically. Starts on Saturday afternoon, ends on Sunday afternoon. So it's 24 hours in Albany. And there'll be sessions of 4 workshop sessions, as well as some general sessions. There'll be vendors available for you to take a look at and who have a lot of things to show you. And lots of time that you'll be able to spend with not only colleagues from your own PTAs and regions, but from all the regions. And so you get a chance to meet not only our officers and all of our governance team members, but also many other fellow PTA people from across the state. So it's a great conference. It's very casual, but you have a lot of opportunities for training. So we highly recommend it. The registration has not gone out yet, but that will be going out shortly. We're just finalizing the workshops now. So that is our SLC, July 27th to 28th.
Thank you, Jack. There's another question here. Where can we find this meeting after if we want to watch it again? So these meetings and webinars will be available on the New York State PTA.org site. This particular webinar might not be on there just yet, but it will be in the upcoming days. I would say maybe by the end of the week.
And the good thing about the website, it does categorize your webinars and your training materials according to topic. So if you're looking for something on membership, if you're looking for something on diversity, if you're looking for something on programs, you could click on each of those tabs and it will bring you to a number of previously recorded workshops and or PowerPoint presentations that you can take a look at. And as well as, we hope, complete the information for the earning of the Leadership Development Badge. I have a question for Melissa and Sonia. What is there a particular program? I know you spoke about many ways to archive your materials and save them. Is there a particular program that you feel is better than others that people might use for their PTAs, that they could be sure that things will be saved and, you know, and recorded and left properly?
I think for me, the best the best program is one that is being used, right? So you need to determine as a group what is the platform that is going to be able to be used and be able to be used consistently, right? So if you have and I would say, you know, gear it to your least technical person. If you've got a technology person, if you've got a bunch of techies and you all want to get into, you know, shared drives and all sorts of you know, things like that, go have at it. But if you've got somebody that is not technologically minded, then you want to make sure that it's something that they're able to understand. And you want to make sure that you, again, take the time to adequately train the person that is coming into the position to know not only the what and where to file things, but why, right? Why do we do this? And the importance of being able to maintain the consistency of having those records, both from a historical perspective, but also then being able to, you know, a lot of times things can get, you know, repurposed or recycled and used for new programs for the following year. So they don't have to recreate it from scratch. They have the template that they can improve upon and make adjustments as needed. Melissa, do you have other thoughts?
Well, and it can be just as simple as just like folders. Like I have on my drive, I have my minutes that I'm currently working on, and then I have my, you know, I have drafts, I have, you know, approved, and then I have archive folders. So it's just something that, you know, you can easily get in and out of. Sonia is my techie friend, so that's why so she teaches me how to do she taught me how to do Google Chat. But it can be just as simple as that, as long as you're forwarding the things to each other. And like I said, it really helps to have that kind of generic, for me, it helps for me to have the generic email that you can just pass from one another. And if I may give a hint, like, I don't know how you guys work, but for me, it's nice to have an email for like work and for PTA, because when I'm at work and my PTA is shut. But when I had it all in one email, it was just, you know, you were constantly getting distracted by work things and PTA things. To me, having a separate PTA email, and then when I have time, I go into it and I do my PTA work. It's just something that worked for me. It might work for others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true with New York State PTA. Several years ago, we went to only specific New York State PTA emails, so that my email, when I'm finished, can be passed on to the person who has my job, and they can see the history of the things that were done, questions, problems, issues that came up, because it's all archived in my email, as it is for everybody, whether you're president or whether you're a specialist or a coordinator. So that, I think, is very helpful to do that in your PTA as well, so that your bylaws person has some history of what went on, or your programs person, whatever it might be, PARP or something. And that way, it's a good way to keep records, you know, passing on from one person to another.
Mm-hmm.
Another question that I had is, we sometimes hear about a unit, and this is so important with records, not being in good standing. And what does that mean? And what are the consequences when you hear that? And it may have happened to some units that are, you know, on the call tonight.
Okay, good. Great question. So what does it mean to be in good standing? So to be in good standing means that I'll go through what it means to be in good standing, and then what happens if you're not in good standing. So to be in good standing, you have to have at least 25 paid members to New York State PTA. All of your membership need to be, all of your members need to be paid to New York State PTA in order to be able to you know, share the width and the breadth of the voice that we have as an organization when we do advocacy work. It's so important. So make sure that all of your members are named and paid to New York State PTA. You have to have a minimum of 25 in order to be a unit in good standing. Also, to be a unit in good standing, you have to have a current insurance policy that is purchased as part of our group policy with the AIM group. So make sure that your insurance is up to date for the current fiscal year. You also want to make sure your bylaws are current. Bylaws are required to be renewed every 3 years. And there's a process for doing that. So make sure that your bylaws are current and are not expired. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of what the other one. The other one is you want to make sure that your IRS status is not revoked. You want to make sure that your IRS status is consistent and is current, and that you are authorized to be a 501c3 organization. The number one way that units can lose their 501c3 status is by not filing their annual information return, which is known as the 990. So if 990s are required to be filed by November 15th, because our fiscal year ends on June 30th, November 15th is the date that our information returns are due. So you want to make sure that your information returns are filed every year. And so what happens, and if they're not filed within a 3-year period consistently, then the IRS will automatically revoke your 501c3 status, and you have to go through a cost and a process to get that reinstated. What happens if you're not a unit in good standing? If you're not a unit in good standing, then you are not eligible to participate in any of the awards or programs that are put on by National PTA or New York State PTA. You're not eligible for any, students to receive scholarship awards. You're not eligible to receive any grants. So being in good standing is very important so that your PTA can continue to function and advocate and work on behalf of the children and families in your communities. Did I miss anything, Melissa or Jackie?
No, but I would echo, because I have bylaws as one area that I oversee, and I do awards for the other, and it kills us when we have to, like, if we have a school that does reflections and then they're not in good standing and we're scrambling because we don't want those kids to be disqualified because they've done an amazing job. So, or if we have an award winner for a scholarship program, and then they're not in good standing, it just kills us when we have to come across those. We try to get them back in good standing as quick as possible, but it does affect kids. So, that's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things that you both referred to in the beginning was the support that all the units have. They're not in this alone.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a council. If you don't have a council, you have a region to go to that can help you with things such as bylaws or insurance or programs, whatever you need help with. And the region is also there to help you with trainings as well. Most of the regions do their own kinds of trainings besides New York State. So you have specific trainings in different regions that come up during the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to get to know your region director and or any of the members of your region board.
Mm-hmm.
And that again, they are a great assistance to anyone that needs any kind of help.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? If you have something to put in the chat, or as Mary mentioned, all of this, and we showed you the part on the website where all of the former and current webinars and or trainings that we did from conventions and summer leadership conferences are available for you to view at any time. And that's important if you really need some help on a particular topic. And also the resource guide. I mean, I can't say enough about the resource guide. That you have a simple question, many times looking at the resource guide, again, that is available on the website for everybody to take a look at, can probably answer a lot of your very simple questions for you by just looking at the resource guide.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie, I have a question. May I have a question?
Oh, yes, of course.
Jackie was my first bylaws coordinator. She's used to me. But I was wondering how many people on the call were like outgoing or incoming or both? Like, are you guys coming in to new positions?
Good
or
question.
Are you going out? Like, I was just wondering.
I don't know.
Can they put it in the chat, I guess? Okay.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat. We have one incoming, outgoing, so we have both. Incoming, continuing, okay, right?
Okay, continuing. Like,
Yes,
oh,
in the midst of a 2-year term, okay. incoming. So I think it's split. We have some
Yeah.
incoming, continuing as president, some outgoing.
Oh, coming in region.
Yeah.
Good for
I
you.
like that.
Mhm.
Nice.
Good. Okay, in one unit, continuing in another. And we know we see that in a lot of school districts where you start in elementary and you continue in middle school and go on to high school. So you're outgoing, but you're continuing in PTA, which is excellent. So it seems like we have a good split of members who are incoming and outgoing and continuing. So that's
Oh,
good to know. So
Schools
any
are
of this
fun.
information and all of this information is something that, you know, any one of you can benefit from.
Mhm.
Thank you for that information.
Mhm.
I'm just curious. I always like to, I feel like sometimes we learn more from each other, like I learn a lot from just talking to people.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's important in the chat if you have questions that outgoing and now a school board candidate. Okay.
Wow.
That's interesting because we do have a number of PTA members that do currently serve on the school board or have served on the school board. So many of them get their interest in PTA and then decide they really would like to go further and be a part of the district decisions, and so they will run for a school board. And we've had many successful people in PTA who are on their school boards, which is a great thing. And you bring a lot to the table
Mhm.
as PTA members on a school board.
Mhm.
And they're hardy. Some of those races are hard.
Yes, they are. They are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other final questions before we finish? Mary, you want to finish us up and again just remind people about the LD award? There she is. Unmute, Mary. Thank
For
you.
those of you incoming, that is tip number 1, unmute.
Yes.
Don't worry if you didn't catch this the first time. Again, this is being recorded. You can always revisit the special question when you get a moment. So just remember, keep watching, keep learning, and remember that this special question will be included in every single webinar that we've done this year, and have fun with it.
Thank you all for attending. We're planning our June webinar. We don't have a date yet, but as soon as we do, look on our website, look on our Facebook, Instagram, whatever other social media. We usually start to advertise that as soon as the webinar is set. So that will be our last one for the year in June. I thank you again and have a good night.